Hi guys, my name's Kiana. This is my first YouTube video and I thought what better way than to start off with the Growing Up Samoan tag. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So obviously my ethnicity is Samoan. I was born in Samoa, and around about when I was 5 years old, my parents got lucky in the quota. So just to give you some context, the Samoan government and the New Zealand government have an agreement whereby Samoan citizens can enter into a ballot, and if your name's drawn from the ballot, you're then invited to apply for New Zealand residency. And so long story short, that's how we came to first be New Zealand citizens and then subsequently become Australian citizens. So I would say myself and my parents are first generation. Definitely I would say that that would be the case for my siblings and I. We grew up here for the majority of our lives. The majority of what we know is life in Australia. The first time I remember, the first experience I have of feeling different was sort of for my primary school application. We had to sit down with the principal and be introduced to our class teachers, to our classroom teachers, year 2 teacher. And my name, as I had always known, was Kiana. And my teacher at the time, I suppose, you know, not having come across many Kianas, just pronounced my name as Kiana. And so the rest is history. From primary school to high school, through uni, and even in the corporate world today, my name is Kiana. So not so much a negative experience of feeling different, but definitely vivid in my mind. I remember thinking, oh, I guess Kiana must not be a common name in Brisbane. Was I always proud of my heritage, or was there a time where I rejected it? In primary school, I don't ever recall being either one way or the other about feeling either one way about the other or the other about my culture. It wasn't sort of a defining thing in primary school for me. My parents were always involved in like the Samoan church groups and things like that while I was in primary school, and I did go to a few cultural things. I would say I wasn't old enough to sort of really appreciate the purpose that served. I think the only time where I struggled with my identity and my heritage was in high school. But I think naturally at that age, you know, you're dealing with a lot of things. You're going through puberty and adolescence and dealing with those sorts, you know, with issues of not wanting to, you know, be isolated or be different. I remember at least two times in definitely grade 10, definitely grade 11, where a Samoan girl was involved in some sort of altercation with another girl in the school, and over the PA, they had announced for all Polynesian girls to congregate in Panola. And looking back, I don't think that's okay. To isolate and to sort of single out a whole group of people just based on what's one person, and she happened to be Samoan. You know, to isolate that whole, you know, that whole Pacific Island, that whole Polynesian community, I would think it would be more appropriate to just call for that student to the principal's office, or you know, to wherever is sort of the required location for them to, you know, be told what's appropriate behavior at school, but not for a whole sort of group of students. And it wasn't an isolated event. Like I said, it happened at least on one other occasion. I think maybe two other occasions where they did that. And I remember feeling uneasy about it, but definitely looking back today, I don't think it's okay, because it sort of insinuates to it insinuates to the wider school community that this whole group of students, this whole population of students are how do I say, troublesome. And it's bad enough, like going through adolescence, being a teenager, really sort of struggling with your identity. You know, I definitely don't think that those sorts of like incidents would have helped. Definitely a stereotype that I struggle with to this day is that I'm into rugby, that I would be into rugby. Like, I mean, if it's there in the back, you know, if it's there in the background, okay, I guess it's there, but I'm definitely not somebody that follows rugby. Definitely a stereotype I faced in school and in work while I was at university. So not in my professional life, but in the time where I was in university working retail, big stereotype that I faced was like, oh, why isn't your family rocking up in like a van, in a minivan to pick you up and things like that. In high school, a few of the stereotypes, obviously, was that if you're Pacific Islander, if you're Samoan, you're great at sport, you're the class clown, and like I said before, troublemakers. I can speak colloquial Samoan, and I only ever really feel comfortable speaking to my peers, so people of my age. Not so much. I always get a bit self-conscious speaking Samoan to older people, or grown, older people, I suppose. My aunts and uncles, my parents, and the reason behind the self-consciousness when speaking to them is that I don't want to slip up, and I find it highly embarrassing to slip up. So I tend to sort of shy away from speaking Samoan to them, which is probably contrary to what I should be doing, is to practice speaking it, because obviously the more you practice something, the better you're going to get. So can I speak the language? Yes, I can definitely understand. I can speak the language. I'm very selective about, I guess, the groups of people around which I'll speak Samoan. I think the disconnect is in terms of priorities. I think people growing up, first generation, definitely second generation, Samoan Australians, a priority for them is happiness. And I guess that's sort of a product of the fact that you're not sort of working to survive. It's a mentality of not working to survive, but like it was for our parents, where it was like, where there was like extreme sort of hunger. For them, it was, go to school and work to get a great job, and that was secure and would pay the bills. Whereas definitely with a lot of first generation and second generation Samoan Australians, the priority is happiness, and sort of really seeking that out, whether it's in a job that you want or whatever it is that you want to do. A big priority is happiness. In saying that though, wherever I go, whatever I do, I always remember the struggle growing up. I remember being up, I don't know what reason I was up at 3 a.m. for, but I remember being up at 3 a.m. I was in grade 5, and my mum had woken up at the same time to go to work. And something clicked in my mind when I saw that, where it just became a sort of clear thought in my mind that she's doing this to pay for our school fees and for us to be able to go to school. And I remember it clicked in my mind that I'm gonna work my ass off. I'm gonna do the school thing, do the university thing, graduate. And I remember on my graduation day from uni just how proud they were. Like, they were smiling from ear to ear, and they were crying, and it was sort of the fruits of their labor finally coming to fruition. All these years of working, and this is probably the case, this is the case for a lot of first generation parents that come here with sort of no recognized qualifications in Australia. They'll come here leaving behind sometimes what is a middle class income, to come here and be at the bottom of the social rung, be at the bottom of the workforce, the rung in terms of workforce, all to be able to provide for their for their kids, all to be able to put them into these respectable schools so that they can grow and that they can they can have they can benefit from all the opportunities that countries like Australia, New Zealand, the USA provide. And so I always, wherever I go, I always remember the sacrifices that my parents made. I remember the ungodly hours they had to wake up every day to go to work. And so anytime I did think to slack off during school, that always sort of it was always sort of like a clip around the ears for me. Okay, to answer this, I want to rewind to about like 5 years ago. So we left Samoa when I was 6 years old, and we didn't go back. I didn't go back until 2009. I was 18 when we went back. And I remember a year or so before we went back, I remember that's when I first really discovered YouTube, and I found this beautiful girl that danced taualunga, Samoan taualunga, so beautifully. Her name was Joanne Toilolo. And I just remember just being so in awe of how graceful she was. And so that's what sowed the seed for my interest in Samoan dance. And then I remember I was scouring YouTube for more videos of Joanne. And I could find one other video, and then the second one was where she was in that documentary, Dance of Life. That was it. And then I found her cousins, Edwina Toilolo, and I remember thinking, yeah, very graceful. I loved how Edwina Goy was able to dance with the nifu'oti. And I just remember being mesmerized by Goy dancing with the nifu'oti, but still my number one girl was Joanne. And so I wanted more. I wanted to see more. Of course, there were a lot of Taulunga videos on YouTube, but there was none that compared in terms of gracefulness to Joanne. And so I was always constantly in search of that. And I think I came across footage of Lupe Almavae, who was the Miss American Samoa. Anyway, I am digressing big time. So long story short, I found clips here and there of like these amazing Taulunga dancers. From the dance, I guess really if you have a hint of an interest in any sort of aspect of the culture, it really sort of blossoms into you wanting to learn about the whole culture and sort of the whole social system, the whole social political system of a culture. Because definitely with Samoan, it's all intertwined, and so you can't just have an interest in dance without knowing, without being informed about the whole social political system in which the dance is setting, because obviously within Samoan culture, the Taulunga is the finale piece in sort of a whole ensemble, and so each of the roles in each of the dances, and definitely with the Taulunga, there's the taupo, and then you've got the omanga behind. So so they all have a place in that dance, and their place is fed by the sort of the Samoan social system. So you'll have the taupo, who's the chief's daughter, and so obviously that expands to like the village outwards from there. So you really can't have one without sort of knowing about the other, all the other things. So that is what sparked for me a real sort of interest in knowing more about the culture. So to this day, I'm very, very proud of my heritage. The more I learn, the more I can't help but walk around with my head held high, to know that I come from a long line of like warriors, seafarers, just strong people who are self-sufficient, can live off the land. My favorite thing about my heritage is that if you go to Samoa, what you'll notice, the first thing you'll notice is that people have like the biggest smiles on their face, and they really don't have very much, but you'll always see them smiling. You'll always hear them cracking up, having a huge laugh, good old time. That's what my favorite thing about being Samoan is that they're definitely not ones to take themselves too seriously. There's always time for a joke. There's always like time for a laugh. And so I really do think that's coloured me, and sort of one of my favorite things to do is like laugh. I always like to have a joke. And I really do believe that's coloured by my Samoan heritage. I'll drop in also that one of my favourite things is the harmonies, the singing. You just have to go to church, or like, it doesn't really matter really where you have a congregation of Samoans. If you ask them to sing a song, they'll break out into this harmony, totally uncoordinated, because they just know what it is when it comes to harmonizing. That's it from me today, guys. If you're Polynesian and there was anything in this tag that you could relate to, I'm really glad. If you want to give it a thumbs up, that would be even better. If you feel inspired to do your own tag, I've posted the questions down below, and I would love to hear your responses. Stay tuned to this channel because I want to show you guys more around Southeast Queensland, because I truly do believe that it's one of the most beautiful parts of Australia that you could live in. Until then, neo vai lo tatou rā, and soifua.